St. John's. It's Ms. Schlecht here, and welcome to day 1 of our first Spirit Week to end the year. Today is Make It Monday, and we are asking you to make something today. It can be anything. You could make an arts or craft item. You could make something out of Play-Doh. You could go outside and build something. You could make a blanket fort in your living room. You could make anything as long as you're making it yourself. So what I decided to do was I was going to do a little baking. So I'm going to make some rhubarb bread. Now, I don't know if you know anything about rhubarb, but it's kind of gross. It's very tart. It is a plant that comes out of the ground, and it starts out as this stalk. It looks like this, and this part is down in the ground, and the top has a big, huge leaf on it, and that's where it gets all the sunlight, and where it turns the sun's energy into food using photosynthesis. And so, when you're ready to pick the rhubarb, you got to reach down the ground, you got to yank it out of the ground, and then you got to chop off the root part and the leaf part, and you just use the stalk of the rhubarb. I don't know if you can see it there. It's kind of a greenish, reddish color. And this stuff is not very good if you just take a bite of it. Woo! No good. Very tart. However, when you put rhubarb into a recipe with lots of other things, like sugar and butter, and all sorts of, flour, baking powder, baking soda, salt, it becomes something really good. Now, I was reading the other day out of the book of Ephesians in the Bible. It's in the New Testament. And I was reading out of chapter 2. It says, "As for you, you were dead in your transgressions and sins, in which you used to live when you followed the ways of the world, and of the ruler of the kingdom of the air, the Spirit, who is now at work in those who are disobedient. All of us also lived among them at one time, gratifying the cravings of our sinful nature and following its desires and thoughts. Like the rest, we were by nature objects of wrath. But because of his great love for us, God, who is rich in mercy, made us alive with Christ, even when we were dead in transgressions. It is by grace you have been saved." So this really made me think of baking with rhubarb, because when I think of rhubarb, I think of being dead in my transgressions. Because, as you saw a moment ago, rhubarb is not something you want to eat all by itself, and it's really not something that you want to use for much of anything. It kind of seems useless all by itself. But when God created rhubarb, he knew there would be a special purpose for it, right? And he, just like when we bake with rhubarb, and we take this tart, icky vegetable, and we bake it into something delicious, we bring it alive. God takes us, who by ourselves are kind of icky and distasteful and don't seem like we're really doing much, and he makes us alive in Christ. He takes us out of our sinfulness, and he makes us new creations. Now, at the end of chapter 2, or I guess the end of this section, in the middle of chapter 2, there's a verse or a couple verses you might recognize. "For it is by grace you have been saved through faith, and this is not from yourselves. It is the gift of God, not by works, so that no one can boast. For we are God's workmanship, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do." Now, it is Make It Monday, so we are talking about doing works today. But we know, as Christians, that our works are not what save us. Jesus is what saves us. And so, thinking about God creating us as his workmanship, that's how we're tying in Make It Monday today. That we, as God's workmanship, we were also created to be creators. That he made us to want to create new and better things. So when you bake this rhubarb into rhubarb bread, it becomes a new creation. It becomes a piece of art, a workmanship. Now you can see in this bread the flecks of rhubarb in there, right? The little red and green spots, which by itself is pretty icky. But when you put it into the bread, delicious. And that's what God does to us. He takes us from being dead in our sins, and He makes us alive in Christ. We are a new creation. We are His workmanship. And we are loved by God. So, make something today. Take a picture or a video and send it to your classroom teacher so we can share all our creations today. And remember that you are a creation of God. You are His workmanship, and you are loved beyond measure. Have a great day, St. John's.